Welcome to Bury Talent, the show for young professionals that tears down false beliefs about faith and work so you can unbury your God-given talent right where you are. I'm Ken Freire, and today with my co-host Patrick Lowndes, we're talking about getting promoted in 2026. Show proof of value. Patrick, this is going to be a great conversation because everybody's always struggling with figuring out how do we get promoted.
That's right. That's right. And we can kick it off in just a second. Briefly, let's do a check-in. It's February now. We're recording this the day after the Super Bowl. So as a Seahawks once a year fan, I'm usually a fan only if they make it to the Super Bowl. We had a great party last night, a bunch of people over. Did you enjoy it from Nashville or not so much?
I think I watched like about 20 minutes of it and then I put my kids to bed and I went to bed. So
Oh my goodness. Well, you weren't missing much. It spiraled downhill in the fourth quarter for the Pats. So anyway, there's that. But yeah, this topic today that we're going to talk about is near and dear to my heart because I worked in the compensation industry, and very closely tied to pay is performance. And then now I've got 15 years of actually getting out there and doing that and being in that myself. You've also run lots of these conversations over the years. So yeah, I'd love to jump into it. What's the false belief we're getting after today?
I think a lot of people would say, hey, if I just work hard, stay humble, and put in my time, I'll get rewarded, I'll get promoted. And it sounds spiritual, right? It sounds like, hey, faithfulness, humility, trust in God. But we have found that that breaks down when it comes to the workplace.
Yeah. And let me just provide the counter here too. We're not saying here that you shouldn't be faithful and humble and that you shouldn't trust God. You absolutely should. But the thing is you can go for 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years running the same play in your job and basically leave possible promotion growth on the table. And as Christians, one of the ways we like to show up in the workplace is always looking for how can we serve in a way that differentiates our value and our inputs from our peers, not for ourself and our selfish gain, but we have a better king in a kingdom, like a better way to show the king and what his way of work looks like. And there are some times when Ken, that doesn't actually lead to the most expedient outcome. And that's okay. But what we want to figure out is how can we as Christians be leaning into showing the proof of our value? And then when our managers look like, man, that guy always is just coming, showing up here and serving us really well, like better than anyone else with the attitude and the posture, like I want more of that guy or that gal. If your boss is saying, how do I copy and paste and multiply you? That's great, especially if they know that you also love Jesus. So that's kind of the combo we're looking for. Ken, it's not just this really kind of quiet, drab, like I'll just do my work like Eeyore. It's something
Yeah.
more than that.
Well, and to compound the issue, right, when it comes to showing proof of your value,
Yeah.
we also have the problem of AI. AI is commoditizing your job. AI is coming for your lunch money, right? Every little thing that you're doing that AI can do, all of a sudden your manager and your business person is like, hey, I'm not just going to reward you for effort. They want to see what can you bring to the business. And if AI is able to do that for you, they start to question, are you really necessary? So you may be thinking, hey, I want to level up, advance in my career. Your manager may be thinking, is there even a seat on the bus for you? So
Yeah.
that's why we're going to talk about this concept. And Patrick, before we go into the proof of value playbook, you
Yeah.
have a beautiful insight on the difference between a proof of value and proof of concept. So kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. So when I was at ServiceNow and in the sales industry in general, there's a lot of professionals that learn this concept of a proof of concept or POC. What it means is when you're trying to sell to a client, especially the bigger the ticket, the offer is like enterprise software, you want to show a little bite-sized kernel of, hey, this is kind of what we think we can do. And you usually has like a demo in there and maybe has like, here's kind of what the value we can give you. But the thing is people call that like, oh, it's just a conceptual slice of value. Here's what could happen. They call that a proof of concept. ServiceNow is like, no, like we're not selling concepts. We're selling actual value. And so internally, they would not use POC. They would call it a POV, proof of value, because if I can't demonstrate to you the value that I'm trying to sell you in this $400,000 or $4 million contract, you shouldn't even be wasting your time talking with me about it. And so ServiceNow is really bent on how can I demonstrate actual value. And today, as we talk about ourselves and getting promoted, we want to talk about what is the proof of your value in your current role. So we have a bit of playbook here. We really love as we're kind of pulling this together, some of the insights, some of the stats that back this up. So Ken, why don't you step us into part one? This is a 5-part playbook of how you can develop proof of value in 2026.
So the first one, we call it build the human in the loop moat. This is really about discernment. If you think about in 2026, right, and at the end of 2025, 75% of Gen Z right now is using AI to upskill, right, to grow their skills, to level up. But here's the problem. 55% of hiring managers still believe Gen Z lacks work ethic. This is coming from intelligent.com. So the reason why there is this gap is because what the managers are not seeing is the discernment in Gen Z. So really, anyone can generate a report. Anyone could do the stuff that AI is doing. But where you come in, if you want to get proof of value for yourself, you have to show that you are able to discern what's the right next step.
Yep, that's right. And a great example of this is like, here's some AI that we got out of this report. Like, catch a hallucination. Like, it might sound a little bit like this. Hey, I identified a hallucination with this Q3 legacy data projections that would have totally misinformed our budget, like to the tune of 10 or 12%. Like, if you catch something like that, all of a sudden, what's going through the manager's mind? Wow, Ken, man, that's on point. Like, I need Ken around so he can catch all this AI garbage that's being thrown out there on these reports. So that's number one, is a human in the loop. Number two is monthly value logs. This is almost like an ROI ledger, right? And some people have called it, if you do some searching on this, some people call it like a brag sheet, right? Which is like, hey, here's the stuff that I've accomplished. But what this does is it's not just here's a task that I did, right? You don't feel like I manage the social media calendar. It's like, well, so what? Who cares? Like, we could have hired some dude on Upwork to manage it halfway across the world, and that he would have told us the same thing. So really what you're getting after here is what is the value you added within your company. So like, for example, saying like, I leveraged AI to reduce the content production time by 40%, which gave me 15 more hours a week to do deeper, let's say, competitive intelligence analysis, right? Or maybe I picked up an extra project with the sales team that let us close another $50,000 deal this quarter. I didn't have that space last quarter, but because of the automation, that's things I was able to accomplish. And if you can draw a dotted line every month to value that you create in the business, even if you are on an engineering or technical side of the house, how you are tied to certain outcomes, and you're able to talk about that with fluency every month, it's a great way to demonstrate, here's the value that I've done. You want to see like, here's January, here's February, here's March. And that's the kind of thing where if you know your value, it's a lot easier to defend that value and talk about it in a confident way, if I can call it that. So that's number two, monthly value logs.
Which brings us to number three, the soft skill mastery. And the reason why I like to call it mastery is because here's what's going on. Like I said earlier, technical tasks are being automated. But the things that cannot be automated are like leadership, empathy, negotiation. That's the stuff where you come into play, and you need this. So here's a great stat. Like in LinkedIn's 2025 Global Talent Trend Report, identified that people management and conflict resolution are the top two most durable skills for Gen Z. And really any leader, if you can do these two things, it's going to be massive. And that's something that AI can't do. And this is how you can bring value to your company.
Say them again. What are those two things again?
Show people management, so leading a group of people, and conflict resolution, right? So negotiating, being able to empathize, being able to like, hey, Sally's over here's right, you're wrong. Don't call him an idiot, right? HR will be brought in.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? If you can collect quote unquote like social proof where you're saving DMs, your emails, you're showing how you're doing peer reviews with people and helping them level up, then all of a sudden you can come to your boss and say something like, hey, I led cross-functional teams here. I'm able to innovate. I've saved the company money by helping save 10 hours just by oversight, just by helping the people. So this is the stuff that we want to be able to show, is that you have the soft skill mastery. Most people don't have this. And this is the thing that could really help you show proof of value.
That's right. Yeah, and so that's number 3. And so if you haven't done a bit of an inventory, you might even consider going online and taking like an emotional intelligence, like an EQ test, and be like, what emotional intelligence do I have? That usually correlates to my soft skills. There's lots of ways to evaluate that. So consider that. Obviously, you need them in customer facing roles, but quite frankly, everybody in the business, that's the stuff that will not get automated out so fast, right? Number 4, the ROI ledger. This one's really fun. So before, when we were talking, it was more of like monthly value logs. This is more laying out with numbers. Here's the direct revenue that I helped drive or the direct efficiency gains. And so, again, the way you want to think about this is high impact employee. How are you fitting the bucket of a high impact employee? So, Gartner, you might have heard of Gartner, pretty reputable source of research and intelligence. They said that the high impact employee usually delivers 2x the value that core employees offer. And the thing is they usually only cost 20% more. So think about that. If you're like a team lead, if you're one of the top performers, you probably do cost a little bit more than the average person, but 2x the value. Some studies say 2.5x the value. I mean, so if you think about it, like if your performance in 2025, let's say you led some process optimization efforts and that maybe, let's say, came up with about $45,000 of direct savings for the company. You're like, wow, that just really sped up the back of our the back end process. But then you could look ahead to 2026 and say, hey, I implemented some new strategies that helped us gain, $120,000 of this new implementation that we had talked about as a theory, but now we're implementing it. If you can have sort of a ledger of like, hey, this is what I did last year, this is what I'm working on this year, it's quantifying the value of your contributions. And the more you can do that and demonstrate what you've done kind of as an ROI factor, the easier it will be to when you show up to the annual performance review, which will be our next episode. How do you have that conversation? The more that you track it like this and demonstrate your proof of value, it's going to be way easier because you're not like making up pie in the sky, like, well, I've been here for this long, or I vaguely did this thing or vaguely did that thing. It's going to be concrete and clear. So that's number 4. Ken, bring us home with number 5.
And right before I bring us home with number 5, some people might be listening to this and like be thinking, wow, this sounds like a lot of self-promotion. And I'm promoting myself. Is that what believers are supposed to do? I just want to encourage you, like, there's a difference between acting like you're prideful versus just showing the facts of like, here's what we're doing. Here's what I'm able to bring to the team.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Day to day, we just forget, right? We're like, as managers, as leaders, sometimes we're dealing with so many fires that we forget about everything else that's going on. And we just need to be reminded. And if you think about this, like even in the Bible, the book of Numbers is there. There's like all this facts. There's all this stuff that's happened, and it's okay to do that, right? Okay. With that being said, let me walk through the last one. Number 5. This is resolve the unasked question. I think if you are trying to level up your leadership every quarter, you can ask your manager a question like this. Hey, what's the one problem keeping you up at night that you haven't had time to delegate? And when they tell you that problem, you go solve it. You go make it happen, because then all of a sudden they're going to equate you to the problem solver. You're the go-getter. You're the leader. You're the one that they can rely on. And you don't want to just be like, oh, cool, this is Bob, who's a great coworker. You want to be known as Bob, the strategic partner. So you helping take initiative and being proactive on that stuff is going to be immensely helpful.
That's right. And just to kind of anchor us in the truth of all this here, in case you haven't heard it, this is like the 3rd or 4th time we're going to reiterate this. As believers, our goal is not to simply maximize our compensation and try to humble brag and really just be an arrogant jerk about what we've accomplished. Do not hear that in this episode. What we want you to hear, there's integrity in some of the data and the proof that I'm bringing to bear. The ROI ledger, as much as possible, are conservative. That shows like, here's kind of what I think I've accomplished. It could have been more, but I know it was at least this, right? There's got to be honesty there, because when they see that you're honest, your boss might be like, actually, no, it was more than that, right? Let like you take the higher road in terms of being conservative on those estimates. And remember that as you're working, I love this Proverbs 21:1, the heart of the manager in God's hands, right? I think it's also Psalm 25 says, the Lord directs the king's heart like a water course, right? And so if you just follow how the Lord is leading you in your role to serve with a servant's posture to see the kingdom come into your office place, let the Lord direct your leaders what they should do. And you'll know if it's time to stick around or to look for another opportunity. But in fact, we're going to dive in a lot deeper on this in the next episode, talking about that annual performance review. How do you have a great conversation with your boss about your value, your compensation? What are your goals? I mean, that might not even be just one episode, it might be multiple. But let's jump into that on the next episode of Buried Talent.